Italy's Narodnik by the government has vowed to late poverty reduction in its at first budgeting plans on Thursday. The aspiring conducting plans of the by the government put it in dispute in Europe powers, who wish Italy to adhere to reduce conducting and escape excruciating up new obligation. The nation's own economics secretary, Giovanni Tria, agrees, but is by policy blood pressure to endorse conducting. His policy boss wished to complementary up cash to perform its campaigning promises. One of the large ticket items is a guarantee minimal revenue for the impoverished. We, in a crucial way, in the Budgeting Act, will include abolished poverty reduction, Luigi Di Maio, Vice Main Secretary and lead of the Five Celebrities side, told of his plans. The reason is downward to little numbers. Mr. Tria is understood to include set a range on conducting of on 1.6% of obligation over gross domestic product. Italy's leaders wish to growth how by a percent spot or two to assist foundation their Narodnik pledges nearby main revenue, tax intermittent and pensions. If the economics secretary loses his job or EU conducting framework are break, it could include a bang-on impact on markets in Italy and in Europe. Italy's Narodnik by the government as necessary to perform campaigning promises and pacify its voters' time balance its books. Five Celebrity and the League swept to force promise a episode of tax intermittent, new public well-being policies and superior pensions, all costly programs. It is wide-mind how performing such pledges will shove the by the government cost high, and nearer to EU conducting framework. Italy is connected by Europe financial liability rules, prevent its by the government of synchronization up to lot obligation compared to its economical exit in any 1 year. The is measurable by the budgeting deficiency to GDP relation, and is set at 3%. The guideline, presented downward of the Europe Committee, is imaginary to provide the joint sustainability of EU countries. Historic, it has frequently been break, but has been monitored more than close with the 2008 world finance meltdown. How foliage the collaborative Narodnik leaders Matteo Salvini, of the League side, and Luigi Di Maio, of Five Celebrity, in unwanted framework on which they can expend to achieve their elevated goals. Mr. Salvini has surveyed why Italy should be bound by Europe framework, impeding which he sees as urgent reformation projects. And on the Europe party, the 3% conducting range is seen as fair how, a range, not a goal. Lot EU financial expert trust Italy should be targeting lot reduce figures, and Italy is by intensive blood pressure of Europe to do so. To do matters worst, down there are powerful sounding during their own by the government inviting for though less than conducting. Mr. Tria, who is written the budgeting, is not a term of each side. He is an freelance political economist and college professor. He was equipped as portion of the complex talks to shape the by the government, in that the main secretary, Giuseppe Conti, is as well an freelance. And Mr. Tria believes the obligation relation should be far under the EU 3% range, initially offering fair 1.6%, partly deformation though by the government's big conducting plans. How since Italy's economics, the tertiary greatest in the Eurozone, as well comes saddled in enormous debts. In raw numbers, it beautiful the spreadsheet in €2.3 billion, £2 TN, and while regulated for the amount of the economics, it comes other just to Greece. Though if Mr. Salvini and Mr. Di Maio honor the EU rules, they include named for conducting in the area of 2%, to 5%. On environment, Mr. Di Maio told down there were no plans to flame the economics secretary above the discrepancy, but a elder drawing of his own side, Riccardo Molinari, seemed to diverge in a print interviewing. If Tria is no much longer in the draft, we will discover else Secretary of Economics, he said Rai TV. The office are due to this their plans after on Thursday. One day solved, they must be adopted by the Parliament in October,